Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another How About Them Celtics video. Sam and I are here recording on Tuesday, November 26th, talking about a weird topic. We'll say weird because I don't really know how else to describe it, but we'll get right into it. The NBA announced today that the Atlanta Hawks would be fined $100,000 for violating the league's player participation policy regarding Trae Young missing the team's NBA Cup game against the Celtics on November 12th. This is from Shams. He said the NBA says its investigation revealed that the Hawks held out Trae Young. It was reviewed by an independent physician, determined that Young was held out of a game that he could have played in. So they got fined $100K, which doesn't sound like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but like that's a pretty hefty fine by NBA standards. Maybe not necessarily by team standards, but like that is a hefty enough fine where they're genuinely trying to discourage this behavior. And at first glance, I saw a lot of the comments talking about, and the Celtics still lost this game. Like, they're getting fined for holding out their best player and they still lost. And we'll talk about it. You can give your thoughts on the general thing too. But my take on it is I don't think they would have won that game if Trae Young played. And
you said
I'm not going to sit here and say, huh?
You said it at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I said it at the time too. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh my gosh, give the win to the Celtics. In the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. They are 15-3. They are off to a better start than they were last season. If you want to say it matters for the cup in particular, sure, I get it. But at the end of the day, the Celtics should have won the game. It is their own fault they lost the game. However, because the Hawks didn't have that defensive weakness on the floor, or I mean, I guess in theory you could sit him out, like just bench him, DNP, whatever, but blah, blah, blah. But that just gets into the whole, what's the word? Outlook of the situation, ownership. Like you can't do that. You can do that, but you can't really do that. Because they didn't have that defensive weakness, the Hawks were able to play a very physical, very, run and gun style of play that they don't usually get to. Jalen Johnson was really great that night. You saw a lot of offensive rebounds. You saw Dyson Daniels be a menace. So, like, I don't know. Again, this is not to come on here and say, give the Celtics the win. This is ridiculous. This is not a complaint. But for all the people saying, oh, they only won and they still lost the game. Well, yeah, but I honestly think it was better off that the Hawks didn't have Trae Young in that game.
So, what I'll say is I'm here to say that they should give the Celtics the win because Jack won't do it. Tweeted it today. People appreciated it. I was trolling. I just always love when teams get punished and it's like $100,000 fine. It's like that's nothing to them. Like these are the saddest, most pathetic punishments ever. But I think this does raise an interesting point. First and foremost, we can talk about the game itself first. Like, absolutely was a night where you felt the presence or the lack of presence from Trae Young. Well, in particular, it really felt like Dyson Daniels stepped up, had extra confidence, he had extra freedom. Am I tripping, or did he have 6 steals in that game? I'm pretty sure he had 6 steals. I remember the stat for some reason.
I don't know if he had 6, but he had a lot. It was 5 or 6. I think it's around.
Celtics turned the ball over a ton anyways, so he was a big part of that, regardless if he was credited with steals. He was just willing to go to battle, to get in and do all the dirty work, something that Trae Young really won't do. And that doesn't mean if Trae Young plays in that game that Dyson Daniels would not get minutes. He would. He's a rotation player for the Hawks. He's going to get minutes regardless if Trae Young plays. But after the game, I believe Derek said it to us. He was like, listen, when guys are out, we know all of these guys are NBA players. They are going to want to relish that opportunity, take advantage of it, and kind of shine when they actually have the opportunity to do so. So that's definitely a part of the spark that Atlanta had on that particular day. Now, the more recent storyline that I think this kind of ties into, even though it's like not a reach, but it's something you actually have to connect yourself, is a lot of people in our circles, or I would say community. I won't say circles because it sounds like it's an inside thing. It's not. The Celtics community was a little bit concerned with the swiftness of Kristaps' return to the floor, right? People are like, didn't need to see him. Talking to somebody at work today, didn't need to see him until at least Christmas. Like, I don't like, it feels like they rushed him back, blah, blah, blah. I personally don't think Kristaps was rushed back. I think he told us last night he went through all the hoops, did everything, felt like he was ready to go a month ago. He was ahead of the expectations almost the entire time. according to what Brad Stevens said on the broadcast last night as well. But to those people that want to see Kristaps not suiting up, it seems very clearly that there is a rule against that. Like, they literally have to play these guys if possible.
Yes. Yes, there's a rule against it. You can't not play if you are healthy. And I mean, Kristaps said it after the game too. He said, I felt ahead of the process the whole time. He said it was the easiest recovery process he's had to deal with. And unfortunately, he's had to deal with a lot of them. Joe Mazzulla said before the game, he's known for a week that he was going to come back to this game against the Clippers. So I think it was just a matter of time. But the Trae Young thing, I'll pull up the box score here just very briefly. I don't want to get like too into the weeds on this. This is just going to be a quick like 10-minute video on for the day for us on like, you know, define why it wasn't necessarily like a bad thing for the Hawks, but like they started this game with Keaton Wallace, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Reese-Shea. Keaton Wallace was abysmal offensively, but he's a long, athletic guard who can play solid defense. You got Larry Nance off the bench. You got Garrison Matthews. You got Onyeka Okongwu. Like, you've got long arm defenders, and you close the game with a trio of Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Onyeka Okongwu, and that leaves you a lot of room for defense, a lot of room for annoyance. And Dyson Daniels did have 6 steals. You're right. So when you've got that, and you've got a night where the Celtics lose shooting 40% from 3, like there is a clear correlation of a lack of weakness on the floor. Like the Celtics thrive a lot of the times by preying on a weakness, by going at a guy. You know, they did it against the Bucks. They pulled out Timmy Lillard. They were like, all right, let's take this guy. This is how we're going to get back in the game. We're going to target him. That would have been Trae Young. I'm telling you now, if he was on the floor, it would have given the Celtics a lot easier of a time on offense. And that's not to say they didn't have an efficient offense, right? They shot 51% and 40% from 3 on 45 attempts. Like, they had a fine offense. They put 116 points up on the board. But like the impact of the Hawks playing a physical game is more than that, because 19 offensive rebounds they had. The Hawks had 16 steals on the night. The Celtics turned the ball over 20 times. I'm going to double check. The Celtics average the fewest turnovers in the league this year by a long shot. They average like 12 a game, 11 a game. Most turnovers in a game by Celtics this season. Let me see.
It has to be that. 20 is...
It has to be. It is that. It's 20, and the next most is 15 against Charlotte. Like, it's not close. And so as much as the Celtics offense was still efficient, like, that very, very clearly had an impact on the game. So again, not saying the Celtics should be gifted a win, not saying, you know, the Hawks would have definitely lost if Trae Young was healthy, but to sit there and act like it didn't have an impact of the game, I just don't think it's true. Again, it is what it is. It doesn't actually matter. It was just some interesting news that came out today, and it was, you know, something that we wanted to talk about quick. But any final thoughts before we get out of here?
There's also a layer to this where I don't think a Trae Young, not a Trae Young team, but like a team with Trae Young playing on it, has beat the Celtics in a while. The last one I can think of is the playoff game where he hits the winner over Al Horford. I think one of the other wins in that Hawks series that the Hawks pulled down was without him. They also beat the Celtics twice last year without him, I think. And then this year, Trae Young was a minus 28, his worst game of the season in the first matchup with the Celtics. He was 1 of 10. He only played 23 minutes. And I actually had thought that he missed time like in the surrounding games before the game that they got fined for, but he did not. So I don't know if it was deliberate or not in the sense of trying to give them a better opportunity to beat the Celtics, but I don't really know why else they would do that. That's the thing that we're missing, is there's no even like report saying like Atlanta thought it was a good idea for this reason.
Maybe
for this reason.
I mean, it could have nothing to do with the Celtics. It could just be they wanted to be overly cautious, and an independent physician said, okay, he was healthy. Like, I get being cautious, but he could have played. And they were like, whatever. So like, it definitely could have been that. That said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 straight matchups, including playoffs, where Trae Young was a negative plus minus. In his career, he's played 24 games, regular season and postseason against the Celtics. He's a combined minus 217 in those 24 games. So not very good. Anyways, Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to How About Them Celtics. Leave a comment down below, and I'll Sam take it out.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, comment. Tell us what you think of this. Should the Hawks get a loss? They probably should. You can hit the bell too. Checking out here every single day. New stuff coming. Full pods drop Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Game recaps are up the morning after each game. And other videos like this one are up in between to keep you up to date with all things Celtics. You can find us on Spotify and Apple too. All pods and game recaps are up there. So if you follow, they go right to your feed. We'd appreciate that. You can email us hbtcpod@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys. We read your emails on every single pod. Again, that's hbtcpod@gmail.com. The socials are at How About Them C's for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook's just the name of the podcast. All streams are there. They're on YouTube. They're on Twitter. Jack's Twitter's at Jack's Money. Mine's at Samuel France. And that's it.